Hi, everyone. My name is RC Victorino, and I'm with BuildOps. For those who are new to us, BuildOps is what we say is mission control for commercial contractors. So what that means is we're purpose built for the complexity of large scale commercial work. So think about connecting service and projects and operations all into one system of action. And pulling back a little bit for this conversation, we recently partnered with an agency called Kickstand. And what we did was surveyed over 600 commercial contractors across North America, so Canada and the States. And what we wanted to do is find a little bit more about what's happening on the job sites, things like labor shortage, things like the complexity of work, things like obviously, the buzzword du jour. I'm sure Chappell loves that of AI. Yes, Chappell's got some opinions about AI. So we're going to dive into those findings today, and to do that in the most proper way, I believe, is I'm joined today by a panel of our customer success leaders. Basically, why we chose this panel is because they know firsthand. They're having conversations with folks just like you every single day, so they know firsthand what you guys are experiencing. They're going to be able to share some conversations they've had with our own customers as well. So before we dive into the report itself, I'm gonna do some quick little intros. Thurain, kick it off.
Sure. Hi, folks. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Thurain Hlaing. I'm one of the senior customer success managers at BuildOps. What that really means is I work with the customers to optimize their use of the program. Like, hey, let's make sure we're billing everything that we're supposed to. Let's make sure that we're getting quotes out the door and such, right? And then the other half of the job is I have this specific business problem. How do I make it fit?
Mm.
Right, so that's always fun. I've been doing this about 6 years, so I work with customers of all sizes, top largest ones in the state to a few mom and pops, right? So it really ranges. So thank you for
Awesome.
having me, RC.
Chappell.
Yeah, Chappell Brock, also a senior CSM here with BuildOps. Been doing CS work for about 7 years, but been here for a little less than a year now at BuildOps. I'm based out of the Raleigh office in North Carolina, which you heard earlier. Excited to talk through this stuff.
Side note, also like a pretty cool spy name or something. I'm not quite sure yet what it is. Football player, sure, but maybe a spy name? I don't know. Maybe. Chappell Brock.
That's a cool
Grant.
name. Hey
Grant.
there, folks. My name's Grant Spiegel. I'm an enterprise customer success manager here based in our Los Angeles office. I work with a variety of multi-department companies. I'm sure some are very similar. As Thurian mentioned, we all kind of do the same thing, and here to kind of help you guys navigate the product.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. So a couple more housekeepings before we dive in. Two things in particular. You should see, if I say chat, ignore me. I don't mean chat. You should see a Q&A somewhere in your Zoom world. If you see me looking over here, it's because that's where the Q&A is. So I'll be monitoring that. Also, the other thing that I'm looking over here for is I have a couple poll questions I've loaded up here. You'll see them pop up on your screen. If you can just answer those when they pop up, that'd be really helpful for us. It helps guide our conversation a little bit more to make sure that we're talking about things that matter most to you. So with that, awesome. Let's kick it off. Okay, so we're going to go through some of the report. We will email this entire report to you tomorrow as well, in case you don't have it. But we just pulled out some of the key things that we think that we could talk to at best over the next 25 minutes or so. And number one, and one of the biggest takeaways for me here was, contractors overall that we surveyed were very optimistic about their future for growth and what have you. 70% optimistic about growth over the next 12 months, which is very, very quick. 71% say regional booms are fueling new opportunities. And dig that a little bit deeper here. If I scroll to the next slide here, like for example, electrification for HVAC, electricians report growing demand from data centers. So as we dive into this conversation, see what you all are hearing from on the ground, I'm going to pop up our first poll question about regional booms. You'll see that on your screen right now. So the question specifically is, are regional booms like data centers, electrification, healthcare projects, do they create new opportunities for your business? So you've got some questions. If you can respond to that, that'll help us understand a little bit more about who we're talking about. But let's kick it off. So, Chappell, are your customers experiencing growth like this?
Yes, I do have a lot of customers who are talking about growth. They're acquiring new shops. They're expanding the number of employees. It certainly seems that despite some of the macro trends we might be seeing in the real economy, it seems that the trades specifically are still geared towards growth and continuing to expand. Certainly, at least in my bucket of clients.
Grant, you had a conversation with someone recently, right? Is that?
I did, yeah. I would say the same as well. Within my book of business, the clients I work with, I actually recently talked to a client of mine, I think it was only 3 days ago, and she's opening up a new office. I will say one trend I have seen is some of the smaller not necessarily these large enterprise clients, but some of the smaller clients are starting to win these bigger opportunities, work on these data centers, things like that. And they're getting these contracts that are allowing for them to expand to kind of like a new bucket that they haven't really seen before. So that's what I've seen from my book.
That's interesting. So, for those of you who are diligent subscribers to the BuildOps webinars, you'll be aware of this. But for the most of you who are not, a few months ago, we had a webinar with a shop Thurain that actually is near and dear to you, one of your customers, who specializes in data centers, and we focus specifically on on this work and how to win this work. You want to talk a little bit more about this particular customer and that work?
Absolutely, yeah. So my customer, is one of the more well-known ones in the state of Colorado, and we're talking a specialty in the HVAC and mechanical of data centers, right? So really big projects. And they told me it was a record-breaking summer, right? This current one, 2025. It's just a massive amount of data centers that are coming out, right? We all can see the news articles, right, from time to time, like,
Yeah.
oh, AI boom. There's so many data centers all these tech companies are building, but now it's real, right? Like these numbers are getting pumped just because of this work. And if you do recall that previous webinar with Haynes Mechanical, they talked about how to get into data centers, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of work, right? It's a high bar for entry, but once you're in, it's looking pretty good right now.
I'm gonna, for folks in attendance and anyone who registered who's listening to this later, I will email for the email that I send out tomorrow. I will email some sort of materials related to that conversation as well, so you can see a little bit more. It was super helpful. It was a very popular webinar as well. So for those folks so by the way, also I'm gonna share those results of these polls here. For those folks who see something like data centers in your region, I think you'll get some good intel from that. For everyone else to know, because I know that everyone else in attendance can't see this, somewhat evenly split here for the results. So we've got, let me bring it over here. We've got 30% do see it firsthand, these regional booms, 30% not yet. I like the not yet because it's very optimistic. It's perfect with the slide itself. 18% is somewhat, and then 21% not in our market. Very interesting. Yeah, and we're diving into that a little bit more on our own and figuring out beyond data centers, because data centers are definitely getting, they're like the belle of the ball, if you will. They're getting all the attention, but they're as Chappell. I love Chappell's facial expressions, but there are other new markets that we're diving into to figure out how each regional's impact on those new markets, and we're diving into that to see what else is out there, because certainly a lot of contractors are feeling optimistic outside of just specifically data centers. Um,
I'd love a study done on hospitals, RC, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So aging population, there's just going to be a lot more healthcare needs, and it'd be interested to see what the growth looks like there.
Is
Healthcare
anyone?
jobs continue to grow, so that's a good point.
This is a
Yeah.
good opportunity for me to plug once again to Q&A, which is open for everyone to just submit questions and or comment and feedback if you want to. So if anyone is working or sees the impact of the growing healthcare industry, by all means, drop your info into the Q&A and we'll share that. This is not new. This is not surprising either. Uh, with optimism, there's still the reality of a labor gap. The labor gap exists. It's a conversation that we at Talk Track we hear a lot and share a lot. Didn't wish we had to, basically. But nearly 50% say a quarter of their positions are unfilled. I want to call out specifically 69% report rising burnout across the team. Now, I want to call that out for one particular reason. Chappell, you and I were talking about this the other day, and you had an interesting perspective on who that means by burnout. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is actually something I ran into late last week is when it happened, talking with a particular client. It's a pattern that I've seen pop up a lot over the past couple of months, which is the office teams also being stretched thin. This particular client, they used to have someone on their team who helped them with payroll, with reporting and analytics using BuildOps, and they don't have that person anymore. So that means that she was working a lot, and she said, and I quote, "I tap out at about 11 hours a day." And that sort of pace is something that's not sustainable in the long run. And again, I think we're seeing that happen across teams as shops try to grow, they're trying to do more, and if they can't get the right people in place, they're trying to do more with the same amount of people.
Chappell,
Right.
to touch on that, I think that really just touches on the importance of having the right tech stack, right? I've seen it with a lot of my clients where they have a variety of different tools. They're navigating between all of these, and these tools aren't really talking to each other, right? So that's just really the importance of having all-in-one systems, right? And having these tools that, you have a small tech stack, it works, it gets all the job done. So that way your office isn't navigating between, 12 different logins.
Yeah, no, I hear people all the time talk about how they don't want to hop between different applications.
Mhm.
My just selfishly, my experience with tech hopping just as a marketer is yeah, if you don't handle it well, that alone can certainly burn you out for sure. But I do think it's interesting that like I feel like people not within the industry would just immediately assume that when we're talking about burnout, we're talking about the folks in the field, because that is hard work in increasingly complicated climates as well, right? Like the summers are getting hotter and there's more rain and like it gets more complex and more arduous. And sure, I'm sure there's burnout and there's stress, but I do think there's not enough acknowledgement about the back office burnout as well. So I think that's a great call out, Chappell. Thurain, you had mentioned something more specifically about the labor shortage that I want to talk a little bit um, about the percentages of success from basically interview to employee, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something that customer of mine actually told me on the larger side. Like if you were to go straight on the street and interview, 10 candidates, right? For a technician role, let's say realistically out of every 10, you're only gonna have maybe two that stick around, right? And I'm sure there's reasons for it, right? Being a technician is really hard work. Those data centers, personal experience, they're really hot, right? So it's not
Mm.
fun, right, to spend a couple hours in there. So, I guess the question for everyone is, how do you make it a little bit easier for people, right? You can't make data centers less hot. It's not going to happen. So, how do you kind of give them some tools to make it a little better, like, and outside of BuildOps, right? Right, just generally speaking, how can we do that? That's kind of the golden question.
Random question also, is it necessarily, this is a conversation I'm bringing into a lot of the conversations I have with I have a podcast. This is a selfish little plug for everyone that we have a
Mhm.
podcast that we're launching, actually coming out this week. But so I'm having conversations with a bunch of different folks about this, and one of the things is ensuring that, like, yes, we want to close the labor gap 100%, of course, but we also don't want to mislead folks on the reality of the work of the work, right? Like
Mm.
just because we need to close a labor gap doesn't mean like every single Tom, Dick, and Harriet can be in the field, right? Like not everyone's. I'm not built like that, honestly. Like I don't think I could not handle it. I think Chapel can handle it. I cannot. And so
Mhm.
part of it is also like how do we ensure that we are not just bringing people along because we're trying to close a gap who are not fit for this, who are not ready for that, because we can never force a square peg round hole, whatever that may be. Anyway, I don't know if you all have thoughts about that, but that's just something that's top of mind for me.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the only thing that I think is something that folk are trying to watch out for more is, someone gets licensed, they go through a community college skills trade program, whatever. Um, it's kind of like, and I know this is going to sound silly, this might connect with some people, but it kind of reminds me of my military service. Like you get basic training, but then you go to your unit and you continue training, and it's a similar thing that happens depending on the shop where technician gets licensed, they get to their shop, but they still need to continue to be trained.
yeah,
And to specialize, to know the specifics, to really cement the knowledge that they've already gained. And again, talking about the growth plus the labor gap, that gets harder and harder to do for shops to give the kind of quality time and training that people might need, to succeed. And I think that's becoming a bigger and bigger conversation as more and more people look towards the trades, as I think we're going to talk about later.
yeah.
Is that your plug for well, we don't have the physical bandwidth to train everyone we need to. Do we just want AI to do it? Right? That's a clever.
That is not my plug, Thurain.
Uh, well, it could be the answer though, right? Just
Well,
You're all getting involved into a conversation that Chapel has very strong opinions about. Talk a little bit more about Tutelage now. So let's talk about tech. All right. So this report found that nearly 1 in 3 leaders say outdated systems are holding them back. I'm not sure how that represents truth to you all. I'll actually will put up a poll question in a moment. But is this surprising for you all that tech is holding people back?
no, not particularly. It certainly it certainly is something that we see repeated, and some of it is really like some of these smaller shops just coming off of pen and paper and having to adapt to technology they haven't used before. That's definitely part of it, but a lot of it is just like knowledge based. Fundamentally, technology and application like BuildOps is a dictionary of words and vocabulary and a system of functions, but that needs to be taught, that needs to be learned,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that is, I think, kind of the biggest thing that's preventing people from being able to penetrate into the kind of technology that will help them.
And just to call out, I did launch the second poll here just to ask, just to read it out loud. Let me pull it here. So I'm actually looking at you all. Which best describes your current setup? So it's either we've upgraded our tech recently, we're in the middle of an upgrade, we like our current tech stack, or our current system's holding us back. This gives us a good idea. And just polls responses are still coming in, but 40% of you are in the middle of an upgrade. So many of you are actively looking to, if I can make some assumptions, and we know what happens when we assume, but you all had identified that you were being held back by your current system, whether it be pen and paper, whether it be some other outdated system, what have you, and are making a change. But a good quarter, 25% of you are saying that your system is still holding us back. Now, Chappell, you mentioned pen and paper, et cetera, but that's not the like. It's also just outdated technology. Like just because you have technology doesn't mean it's actually the right technology for you.
Yeah, I saw Grant come off mute. I think he has an opinion here.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it where people for years have patched together different systems, right? Different spreadsheets and all this stuff. And, seeing that people are trying to improve their internal processes and they're getting this new tech, I feel like AI kind of is finally the chance for them to really like clean everything up, really connect all the dots there and have these systems, talk to each other.
Yeah, and I'm just for the audience, Grant is like the Chat GPT master. I'm definitely a late adopter, and I see this guy had already set up like all these prompts, and his
Yeah.
GPT knows exactly what he's trying to do. I would imagine you could leverage it, right, with these newer systems, and make it do things that you couldn't do in the past. Right? I'm sure
Yeah.
that's a possibility if you invested time to do it.
I would just say like my advice and what I've seen is really successful is if you're coming from pen and paper, right, different spreadsheets, and you're getting a tool like BuildOps, use all of the AI as possible as you're evaluating your new tech stack. And like you're pretty much starting from scratch, right? You're going from pen and paper to these new tools. Just get with the program basically, and leverage the AI. And yeah, Chappell's laughing. He might disagree, but I
I
think it
don't
just
fully
really
disagree. I don't
does
fully
help
disagree, Grant.
operational efficiency.
Well, we will talk. We're actually going to talk about AI in a moment, but I do
Yep.
want to call out like so as a storyteller, so writing is a large part of what I do on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, AI has completely. I could not imagine being a freelance writer anymore. Like I don't know how they make any money because there's a lot that I can do so much faster with AI. But I will say, and I think that the product team out there, and maybe back behind Grant, maybe some of them are there. Be very happy to hear me say this. Garbage in, garbage out, though, right? Like even when it comes down to how I use my chat GPT, if I just told it to like write me 500 words on topic X or keyword Y, like it would be crap. You have to give a lot of effort into what you're putting into it, and that goes down to the very complex areas of a large platform as well. Like the data that you're giving it as well matters in terms of what you expect to get out of it. AI is definitely not a magic wand, even though it is pretty miraculous what it can do right now for sure. Let's move on. All right, AI. It's going to be a few different slides here. AI obviously is a very hot topic. We see it all the time. I mean, we just had a user conference a few weeks ago down in San Diego, and that was a big topic as well. We talked about it. We had actually a whole dedicated seminar about that from a guy from Harvard talked about it. It was fantastic. Anyway, so 78% say AI can improve operational efficiency. 80% say it will be essential to stay competitive in 3 years. 81% feel confident in their ability to adopt it. I'm intrigued by that one. 81% feel confident in their ability to adopt AI. I want to know what those folks who were surveyed mean by that. Because if it's just,
Yeah.
and Chappell, you'll talk about this in a moment, but if it's just like adapting ChatGPT into like whatever your personal thing, great. But it's actually adopting it to your entire organization, like that can get really complicated.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can we
yeah, go ahead.
can I chime in for a minute here?
Yeah,
I think
please.
the slide is the juice, right? This is where we're gonna have a good time talking about the applications. Is what I've seen the teams be most successful with is starting with the simpler AI functions, right? The ones that correct your text grammar and their spelling, right? For one thing, because we know texts are the strong suit is not right? The writing, right? That's not what we hire them for. The invoice summaries, right? So that a person would have written up what you're trying to tell the customer you're billing them for, and instead you let an AI do it, right? Those things actually save time. Like I bet you what you should do is you should take a stopwatch, right? You should measure what happens if a person actually has to clean it up, right? And we all hear these things like, oh, my customer doesn't like seeing it the AI way. Oh, they don't like it. It's like, honestly, the reality is these things are happening. And yeah, the AI talks a little bit differently than I would write normally. But Grant, you teach the AI to, write a little bit more like you would and such. And then now you're saving 10 seconds each time. I mean, that kind of adds up over 100 records a day, doesn't it? It's a lot. You guys
What
have
are the
thought?
other things that we can do, by the way, like the build out specifically, but like AI in general? So like, let's say that one of your techs are ESL, right? Like English is a second language. They can speak in their native language the more as comfortably as they want to, and then they can have a tool just translate it automatically into English or whatever language you need it to
Yeah,
be.
super useful.
Yeah, super useful, right? Saves a ton of time for you in the back office. For the poor back office folks who are already burning out, as we noted earlier, like they don't have to worry about trying to translate that stuff or hound their techs to do things for sure. Yeah. I'm gonna bring up the next slide because this is where Chapel's gonna get all fired up.
Mhm.
So right here, 78% are saying that they're using or testing AI right now. Um, do you remember why you were all fired up, Chapel, or do I need to prod you a little
Well,
bit?
no, I recall this one. So I think we touch on a little bit more in terms of like what we're trying to do or how they're utilizing it. I think we touched on
Mm,
that a little bit more, but my initial view when seeing this was how are we utilizing AI? What does that mean? And I think that what Thurain talked about is actually one of the really great examples of phenomenal use cases
yeah,
for AI. Grammar changes don't need to be perfect.
right.
Translations don't need to be perfect, but it saves so much time and really helps it drive efficiency. I was just curious for like the team, so to speak, the people here, like what are you using AI for? It's certainly something I'm interested in.
Well. It's funny that you asked that because I got a poll question here, and I'm going to go to the next slide as well. So, of the folks surveyed, this is what they're using AI for. So the largest percentage is for estimating. Now, I shouldn't have shown this slide because I don't want it to skew the poll results, but the poll question in that's launched here is where do you see the biggest opportunity for AI in your business? So this is not necessarily that they're using it, but where they see the opportunity for it in the future. And
Sure.
votes are coming in right now. I'll give it another second, but I will say that uh, a good percentage are not sure yet. They don't quite know yet. Oh, which is interesting because I don't think we included. Yes, it is. Sweet. Perfect. This is interesting that the majority of people right now are saying they are not sure yet of where AI will fit into their business. Because if you look at this next slide right here, training is the biggest barrier to using AI. It's not trust. I'm sure I mean, I have mistrust with AI for sure. I have mistrust with a lot of different things. So whatever. Again, we won't bring up Chapel, but I think that we undersell the reality that like majority of people have accepted that AI is a part of life. AI can do incredibly amazing things for a business. The ability to scale one's efforts is like nothing we've ever seen in our, quite literally. Like that's not even hyperbole, right? But it can be complicated. So the biggest barrier right now is training. That is not surprising to me at all. But how does one get trained in AI? Do they attend a webinar? Do they
Did they
adopt a
talk to
tool?
Grant?
Do they talk
Yeah,
to Grant? Do they
there.
adopt? Yeah. What do they do?
I will say there's a lot of resources out there. This is a good example, right? I've personally been in a back office on site with a customer, watching someone do an admin task, not through BuildOps, just pen and paper that's
Mhm.
taking them an hour, and I've literally signed them up for ChatGPT on the spot and like taught them. So I think it's literally just having access to the resources, doing the research on your own. If you are a company owner, maybe just having these sessions with your workers and saying like, hey guys, like has anyone talked about this AI platform? Like, do we know how to use it? And just providing simple documentation and just A/B testing, see if it helps your operational efficiency.
And
I
I
think
think, sorry, RC,
I
if
think
I
that
may.
bottom up. I think that bottom up though is a good idea though, right? Like
Mhm.
you mentioned, like Chapel, like talk to Grant. I think there are other grants in companies. Like maybe the business owner is not the best person to say like, here's some ideas to use AI. I found it on YouTube,
Hmm.
TikTok. Are you all using TikTok? But maybe there are some techs in your field who are very well versed in AI and other applications that can apply that to your business in some sort of way, right?
Yeah, and building off of that, I think two things. Number one, a credit to the people in the audience. The beginning of wisdom is admitting that you don't know. Like saying that you don't know and you're not sure where that value lies is great because it means that you're open minded to where it could go. And I think it is through exactly what Grant and RC described and exactly what we're doing here. What Thurain mentioned earlier and what I mentioned earlier is like there are these little places where we can start building efficiencies, and when we do that, when we're open to it, we're going to discover things together that are really going to drive scalability and change.
Yeah, and by the way, so 31% is definitely the majority here, but not too much. Estimating is second, with 28%, office admin 25%, followed by scheduling and dispatch at 9%, and then compliance for 6%. I'm going to throw on to the next slide right here. I do have a question I'll ask in a moment, but I just want to make sure I revisit this because there is interesting conversation here. So folks who do use AI tend to be more optimistic about the future. They tend to see the opportunities for change and transformation in the trades. I bring this particular slide up because, again, calling back to the user conference we just had in San Diego. So we had Mike Rowe on stage for us, and he had some amazing things. One of the things that sticks to me is how essentially, like AI is not coming for the plumbing jobs, right? AI is coming for my job. And at the same time, we're spending a lot of money training kids and to have them pay for college they can't afford to get jobs they're never going to get, so they can never pay back for the college that never got them the job to begin with. It's asinine. So I do want to say that like there is a great opportunity to bring more younger folks into the trades. How do we do that? And Thurain, you mentioned something a little bit more, like we'll call out specifically Blue On, and you can talk about that a little bit more. But like, how to use technology to empower
Yeah,
folks a little
absolutely.
bit more.
And I think
Right?
this is actually pretty related to Christopher's question here in the Q&A. Yeah,
Cool.
I mean, the first one that comes top of my mind that we've worked with in the past is the Blue On right team there. They were one of the first to get into the AI for helping technicians work through the equipment they're with, right? So I'm a technician. If you made me a technician tomorrow, I wouldn't know how to fix anything, right? It's
Yeah.
just not going to happen, right? But if I combine it with this program that has manuals, right, to help me, but I'm chatting the thing, right? I'm literally asking it, hey, I am working on this unit
Yeah.
and I am stuck here. That's a very good prompt, right? Could at least get you some answers. So I think it's really that is part of the key to making people stick around, right? For one thing, if they're having a hard time in the field, other office people that may not be as experienced in the trades, right?
Yeah.
It could get them some speed.
I will call out, like, this is a great example of why industry specific tooling is important for stuff like that, because AI can and will hallucinate, and it doesn't like to admit that it's wrong. So it will make things up for sure. If you just brought out ChatGPT and asked the same question, things could get dicey and things could get ugly. So ensuring that you're using the right tooling that's designed for these kind of applications that are informed by and have the library of the knowledge that you need is definitely the way to go. Um, we are at time. My gosh, that happened really, really fast. And I do want to value your all the time. So I want to make sure we let it go. As a reminder, I will be emailing this recording, the full presentation beyond just the slides you see on the deck here, as well as some other resources. We mentioned data center Haynes. Like I'll provide some links to that as well. Um, and then other than that, if you have any questions, you can reply back to the email. If you have any ideas for other future webinar topics, please, by all means, let us know. I'm definitely all ears to hearing about other things that you guys want us to talk about with our panel of experts. Yeah, you're all experts. Speaking of our experts, Chappell, Thurain, Grant, really appreciate your time. And to everyone else, look out for the email tomorrow. It'll be by me, RC. And thank you so much for joining. And until next time, keep building, y'all. Take it easy.
Yep. Thank you,
Thank you.
folks.